Hello, my name is Luke Follett, and today we're going to go through Michigan inequality and representation presentation here. So let's start with a look back. You probably heard of redlining, but what does that really mean for cities like Detroit today? Well, redlining was a federal policy from the 1930s where neighborhoods were graded by their risk for mortgage lenders. Areas with black or immigrant populations were marked in red, basically off limits for investment, and also off limits for people to get loans to live there, especially with people, in minority or immigrants. Right here, uh, we have the redlining pictures here. And so you can see that the red is very hazardous. The dark red and the red is, definitely declining. And a lot of Detroit was marked as this, and it segregated a lot of people. And let's just go down a slide here. A couple slides. Missed it, sorry. So the HOLC map for Detroit, this shows what kind of policies these policies didn't just shape where people lived, it shaped where resources went, like parks, schools, hospitals, jobs, you name it. And so even now, those same red line neighborhoods often still face high poverty, lower home ownership, and worse health outcomes. If you compare that historic map to today's economic map of Detroit or Grand Rapids, you'll see a disturbing overlap. So you can see here that the there's a comparison with the old hazardous red here and the low, scoring areas. They're basically the same, and it's unfortunate, but it's also very good to see this connection, so we can really trace back where this is coming from. So to my second point, representation and gerrymandering. What is it? Gerrymandering is when politicians draw in district lines to help their own party. It's it can be legal, but that doesn't mean it's fair. It was legal to a certain degree for a long time, and now there's a lot of policies in the way of it. So, Michigan story, for a long time, the party in charge of the state legislature, often Republicans, used redistricting to split up communities, especially in cities like Detroit and Flint. That meant that even if Democrats won the majority of votes, Republicans still won more seats. This is like packing and cracking. Example of this is in 2018, Democrats got more votes statewide, but Republicans still took 9 of 14 congressional seats. A turning point. So in 2018, Michigan voters said enough is enough. They passed Proposal 2, creating the Independent Citizen Redistricting Commission, in other words, the MICRC, a group of regular folks from all parties drawing maps based on fairness, not politics. So these are like third-party groups, forming these districts instead. So fast forward to 2022, under the commission's map, Michigan split into congressional seats evenly, 7 Democrat, 7 Republican. That's what fair representation looks like, So it's a lot more closer. And so I'm going to show the chestnut districts. And so you can see here this the red outline is a district, and you can see that it forms almost identical with the counties or square mileage. And in Detroit, which is not shown here, they actually split it right in half because it's such a high population. You have to, but it's not so rigid as you can see in the past, which is a good indicator of gerrymandering. Is where they group, yet they have really irregular shapes that are shaping these new districts. And so here you have something that is very uh, geometric, something that's a lot more closer to what we would say is more fair districting. So next we're going to go to media coverage and voice. So why this matters is where you live really changes how you're seen and heard in the news. So urban versus rural, cities like Detroit and Grand Rapids have tons of media outlets, but in rural places, especially up north or in the thumb, people are in what it is what called a news desert. So that means fewer local papers, fewer reporters, and way less information. On the other hand, social media is a great a great outlet for a lot of these things. But when you're talking about like nationwide or even statewide or local news stations, it's quite rare for some of these places, especially like in the UP, to get that much coverage. Especially any specific coverage. It's sometimes, like for the UP, it might be a news station covering, generally everything that happens in the UP, so you don't get a lot of specifics about specific towns and cities. The impact. So less news means less civic engagement. People don't know what's happening in local government, so they don't vote or speak out. Efforts to help. Some local papers, like the Manistee News Advocate, are pushing back by focusing on community reporting, and groups like the Michigan Office of Rural Development are trying to support these efforts. So the state is trying to stimulate some of these news coverages. So, a quote from a source: the Crane's business calls local journalism in crisis, but there's hope if we invest in it. So, next, I want to go to local case study. So, Ashley, Michigan, that's where I grew up. Very small town. I believe there's like my school had like 90 kids in it. The graduating class, some of them only got 9 kids in the graduating class, and some like mine was like 20, maybe 16. So where? So Ashley is a small village in Gratiot County with about 500 people. It's rural, quiet, and often overlooked. I think the only events that people really see is like the Polar Express there. And now there's just they built a Dollar General on 57, so there's people that come in and stop by there, but they don't really go into town. It's kind of a ghost town at this point. We used to have, we still have a railroad that goes through, but railroads aren't really used that often anymore. And so now we just have the Polar Express that comes in, and then, sometimes people stop in to get gas, because we do have a gas station. But other than that, Ashley's really small. The representation, it has local leaders like village president, but bigger decisions come from the state and federal reps, obviously. Media reality actually doesn't get much media attention. Most info comes from its Facebook page. That's where people go to find out what's going on. So there's very few information about what's going on. And like I said earlier, social media is a big outlet for a lot of these small towns to get things out when they don't have local news stations that cover what goes on. And there is a couple news stations, like there's a newspaper, but the newspaper only goes so far, and it rarely goes anywhere outside of Ashley. So historical challenges. Small towns like Ashley have struggled to shape policy because they lack money, media, and political power. When you combine that with a population loss and state-level decisions that don't prioritize rural areas, it's hard for these places to make their voices heard. So lack of representation in news, and obviously, there's less people, and they get less political power that way. Sometimes we can get political power for the general rural community, like for farmers. But when you don't have the numbers, it's really hard to do that. Or you don't have the money. That's a really big part of that too. Uh, so, going to taking action. So, let's talk about what we can do to fix all of this. So, I have two suggestions. So, one is fund rural journalism. So, we can create a Michigan grant program for rural newspapers, nonprofits, and freelancers to write about things that happen in small towns. And, you know, it's not like nothing interesting happens in small towns, but to get the news out when something does happen, you know, in small towns that, you know, is exciting, you know, like the Polar Express, or that, you know, that happens in Ashley, or, you know, maybe like fundraising events, or things that, you know, if Ashley had enough media coverage, it would be able to get a lot more events going. Um, and why? So from 2005 to 2020, Michigan lost over half its journalism jobs. Um, it would give more coverage, better informed voters, and stronger local democracy. Um, and who benefits is, you know, rural towns, schools, and anyone who wants a better informed community. And of course, we want better informed community, you know, everywhere in Michigan, rural or urban. And so my second fix for this is to teach media literacy and civic skills in rural areas. So what this looks like is like launch programs in rural high schools and libraries to teach media literacy, redistricting, and civic engagement. So this is definitely down the route of social studies. So why do this? So it informs people, and informed people, you know, equals powerful people. Knowledge equals power. And rural voters are too often left in the dark about a lot of things that are going on in the community, and you know, researching in the media. So if we get, you know, a fund for rural journalism, and we teach people how to interact with that media, and really look for it and to support it. You know, we're not really in the same time as subscribing to the newspaper. Um, so it, you know, it can be harder for the younger generation to really support local news when it is just the newspaper. So looking into more than just that, we're looking, you know, the historical aspect of that, but also just, you know, learning how to look into media. And that could even be too just getting in touch with local news stations and maybe getting emails or notifications from them to really figure out what's going on, and also decipher, you know, like um, clickbait and a lot of stuff that we see now on like the more common general like social medias like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, where you have a lot of clickbait from news organizations because they're on social media. Um, when, you know, sometimes you don't get the most accurate or beneficial information from that. So what it does, it helps people understand how power works and how they can use their voice, and this is really important for civic duties. Um, this is definitely something that could just be implemented into civic classes, and honestly, I think it should be already for a portion of it, but, you know, just centered more on, you know, for rural communities, understanding their local government, and not just maybe the local government of their county, but also the government in their own village. I mean, I personally, I never got taught about having village representation, like president of a village. I didn't even know there really was one. I knew that like we had like a mayor type of position because of the Polar Express, but that's the only time I've ever seen the guy, and I have no idea what's going on, you know, really with Ashley, and I don't know how to get informed. So who benefits? You know, of course, students, and, you know, young adults going into adulthood, learning about civic duties. Voters, you know, those same young adults are going to learn more, and, you know, those young adults are going to be the new voters. And a small community and all small communities all across the state of Michigan obviously are going to benefit from this if we can get them to learn how to use their media to uh, look into their own communities and be more engaged with their own communities, and have more information with them. Because if we have better communication, there's more incentive for media coverage because you have an audience, more people, even if it is a smaller town. Getting all we can to get engaged, but also have people who kind of understand where this comes from and can they themselves be part of media when they get older, when we teach about media coverage and how that all works. So in conclusion, we want Michigan where every voice matters, urban or rural, rich or poor. We've got to invest in fair representation, strong local journalism, and the power of education. It starts with seeing the system clearly, then changing it. So I truly do believe that education on media and how to guide through it, especially in new times like we have today, is going to be the best thing we can do. Apart from also funding, news media to be engaged, because we can't learn about media that's not there. So having media, that's funded, that's taken care of, and then also having, this new generation taking that and, kind of being able to use more than just, the social medias like Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook, because as good as those can be, they're not always good for good news, good factual news, and a lot of times they're just a small, snippet of what actually happens. So it's really important for us to, kind of spread our wings out, and it doesn't have to be newspapers. It can be websites, just like many schools. They do their own school newspaper or school's newsletter. They do it through an email. Something very simple like that, just learning how to engage with that. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.